All right. I always have a degree of difficulty getting it going through my streaming software. It almost makes me wonder if I need to prioritize getting some other kind of streaming software. But I do not see it live on my channel yet, and we don't have any viewers yet. Okay, there we are. Yet. All right, so it looks like everything's working. How's everybody doing? I was on a live stream last night with Clyde Do Something, and I found that somewhat inspirational. It's always so nice to interact with the chat, and the last live stream we did was the election chat, or the election live stream, rather, and I think we hit 27,000 views on that one. That was a pretty good night, and I had a good time, and, I actually really enjoy most of you people. I'm not going to say I enjoy all of you. That would just be a lie, and I'm not here to lie to you, but I enjoy the vast majority of you. Libertarian Keith, good afternoon, brother. Good afternoon, Keith. Good to see you. Wage Slave Uranus, hi. Hi to you as well. C says, good afternoon, Frank. Good afternoon. You're in the East, obviously. Good morning, Frank. You're either concurrent in Mountain Time or you're in the Pacific somewhere. I suppose streaming through the day is not the best for a lot of people, but I don't really have a formal structure. So how's everybody doing? What's on everybody's minds? What are we all up to today on this fine weekend? Hi there, watching from Medicine Hat. I have not been to Medicine Hat yet. I'd like to change that. Gabrielle Lee says, thank you for the good information. You're welcome, Gabrielle, and thank you for your time. Hello, Frank. Doing well, I hope. Yes, my neck is much better than it was, although I'm suffering from exercise-related temporary injuries right now. I have calluses. I have blisters all over the place. The entire time I was streaming with Clyde last night, I was seeping blood out of my foot. So, considering it is very thick with wildfire smoke outside right now, I think today I'm just going to take it easy and let my body rest. But I've been walking 6 miles a day in the aim of getting everything together for that We Unify conference that's coming up in September. Whatever role I have in it, I want to do it the best I can and look the best I can and present the best I can and be in a very clear state of mind when I do so. And that is September 19th, 20th, 21st, weunify.ca if you want to check it out. Early bird tickets are going to be cheaper. I honestly haven't even looked at ticket prices because, as a participant, my admission's covered. I'll have to pay for hotels and getting there and doing all that stuff. But I want to be in the best shape possible. So I have some pretty hard targets. 6 miles a day, minimum walking. I'm looking at 4.5 day fasts every single week. And I did a 60-hour fast. I came off it yesterday. And the brilliant thing was I ate a burger patty and 2 eggs to start, just with salt, no butter. And I ate some jerky. And then I got into some other food as the day went on. And I got to tell you, it worked real good because if you break a fast and come off it, and you come off it too quick or you come off it with the wrong foods, your guts can get pretty disgusting. So anyway, that worked really good. It was a good fast. So it's just the beginning. I heard the song You're So Vain by Carly Simon this morning, Bassomatic says. It reminded me of Canada as a whole. Canada, I guess vanity is one way of describing it. I think it's vacuous is the word I would use. There's a lot of people are very superficial. They're not into depth. They're not into detail. They like their sports ball. They like their wage slavery. They just want to get by. They just want to be left alone. And there's enough prosperity in the country still that's a legitimate strategy, I guess, to be left alone in your bubble. But it's not going to make anything better. Things are just going to deteriorate and get worse and worse and worse unless we wake up and start dealing with reality. Nova Scotia here. Glad you're doing well, MB. Welcome. Stream when you want. The right people will find you. Yeah, it's true, Libertarian Keith. I'm starting to learn to that point that, I talk about organic growth and organic value all the time on this channel, but I'm really starting to figure out what that actually means. the audience is a high-quality audience. There's some really good people gathering around me, like some honest people. I've taken flack from people because I associate with Clyde Do Something or because I associate with Rod Giltacker or some of these other people. These are some high-integrity people who have done nothing but be helpful to me as I've gone along, encourage me and try to get me to do more and be more ambitious. It's awesome. And I'm really, and my community, a lot of the people in this community, most of you, the vast majority of you are really awesome people. And some of you have been there for a long time, like Faye Knox. Hey, Frank. Good to see you, Faye. Charlottetown, good afternoon, Frank. I'm going to guess that you're in PEI. Just a guess. Good day, Frank. Hoping you and yours are doing well. I am from BC, Chinata. That is definitely a more accurate name. What the heck are we going to do, says Wage Slave. I have no idea. Every Canadian town is slowly becoming Toronto. Yep. And we're not looking to tap the brakes. We're still going full steam ahead. Frank, have you watched any of Question Period yet? I'm already sick of Freeland and Champagne. No. I've read some transcripts, but I haven't watched it. I thought about streaming it and responding to it, but really, I think there's better uses of our time. This is better use of time. Having a conversation with real people. Like, Question Period is just scripted nonsense, really. Like, everybody knows what the questions are going to be in advance. Everybody knows what the answers are going to be. They have all times of, it's theater. And it means less and less here in Canada. When the government can spend hundreds of billions of dollars without a budget, when they can reinterpret laws through orders and councils, when they can ban your property without referring to Parliament. I mean, what's the use of it all? It's just theater. And until something's done about that, until something restores it to reality and gives it some strength and depth again, what's the point? It's just depressing. There's just better things. Hi from Sterling, Ontario, my old stomping grounds. I was just talking about Sterling, Ontario with my mother-in-law and wife this morning. In particular, about a time I got pulled over by a cop up there, and he was very merciful to me considering what I was doing like 110 through a community safety zone. But yeah, Sterling, old stopping grounds. Trudeau lowered the standard for other politicians. He didn't just lower the standard, clown. He, and I'm referring to the person who wrote the comment, not Trudeau being a clown, although it's interchangeable. He created a new precedent for governing. The lowest bar for accountability that Canada has ever had, even though the bar was pretty low in the past. Trudeau just, it's on the floor. It can't get any lower. And he skated off into the sunset. He's doing fine for himself. He's never going to face accountability unless things change. But he also pioneered this idea of governing by edict through the Governor General's office. It's a very unique and new use of power. It's been done before, but it's never been structurally done the way that Justin Trudeau did it when he prorogued and basically ruled by edict. That's a new thing. And Mark Carney's telling us when he sits behind a desk and he signs the fake executive orders mimicking the Donald Trump that he was elected to fight, whether you like that or not, that's what he got elected on. Elbows up and fighting with Donald Trump. And at the same time, he would sit and do these fake executive orders mimicking Donald Trump. We don't have an executive, or at least we're not supposed to. But what he is showing you that rule by fiat through the Governor General's office is going to be something that features in his prime ministership. And so we're going to have, actually the first week is done. We've got 2 more weeks of Parliament in session, and then they're all going home for the summer. And we're still going to have a government that is spending, that is perhaps negotiating treaties, that is making decisions on your behalf while Parliament's not even there. They're telling you that your elected representatives mean very little, which means that you have almost no value in their calculations. Jay Donavinci says it's not vanity, it's pride, and I think he's talking about Canada. I think we're proud and ignorant all at the same time. The hotel in Nipawin, Saskatchewan is at capacity because they house all the East Indians working shifts at Tim's and Mickey's. Hotel owners' main income is, yeah, that's so true. There are so many TFWs in Saskatchewan. Tim Hortons is full of them. McDonald's is full of them. Every fast food chain is full of TFWs. It's disgusting. There's people who want jobs. They can't get them because they're being outcompeted by these subsidized cheap laborers. Actually, that's actually a good spot to bring up. Hang on a second here. I just got to find it. We're going to bring up, where the heck is my browser window? Come on, Frank, get organized. Oh, and we should probably let Twitter know that we're doing this. Until I get more practiced and familiar with this process, folks, it's always going to be a little bit painful to start. So we'll post that. And then we'll make sure that that actually posted properly. All right, cool. So we have, well, we're going to compare two articles, actually. We're going to compare Juno News, and we're going to compare National Post talking about the exact same things. I should probably get my big head out of the way and go to the little head. First reading, Canada increasingly dependent on low-wage migrant workers, says report. Bank of Canada analysis finds share of native-born Canadians in labor force has dropped 10 percentage points since 2006. Huh, isn't that interesting? When you bring in heavily subsidized immigrant temporary foreign worker workforce that are cheaper to hire and have less rights, these are indentured serfs. When the Liberal Party and the NDP talk about labor rights, when they talk about ending exploitation, when they try to pass themselves off as champions of human rights, it's good to keep in mind that this is what they support as well, bringing in indentured serfs, because it's not just about the displacement of Canadians, though that is probably the most important factor. These people are basically slaves who just work, and often work really hard for less pay than they might otherwise get, and under the threat that if they speak up, if they complain about unfair labor practices, if they complain about their conditions, they might get deported, they might lose their work, and they might be out of the country. This is hurting everybody, except the people who are making money off the system, which there's lots. Contributions to annual look at this. Look at what's happened since Trudeau came in. This is repairable to a degree, but some of this is not repairable. This will break Canada. Now, it's interesting how this headline is framed as, the way that it's worded, as we've already just read. Juno News, on the other hand, says, Indian, Middle Eastern mass immigration suppressing wages. A new Bank of Canada report published earlier this month warns that the country's economy has become increasingly reliant on low-wage mass migration of temporary workers from India. Now, that tells a better story. That tells a more accurate story. That's a more accurate take on what's going on. This is targeted. This is deliberate. India is the biggest source of immigration to Canada, not just permanent residents, but also temporary foreign workers. We're talking hundreds of thousands a year coming into Canada. Many of them just disappear, and they're everywhere. They're in northeast Saskatchewan, in little towns like Nipawin and Melfort and Tisdale. Everywhere you go. It's exploitative. It unfairly keeps Canadians out of the labor force. Yeah, it's terrible. A new Bank of Canada report, the paper published by the bank's Economic Analysis Department, found that the share of Canadian-born workers in the labor force has fallen from 77.6% to 68.1% in 2024, 10 points. And we can absolutely know with certainty why. It's part of a concerted policy effort, a concerted policy plan. Let's go back to the chat. Hold on one sec. Get back to the chat here. Uh-oh, skipped ahead. Afternoon, Frank, Logan White. Afternoon to you as well. Hey, Frank from New Brunswick. Good to see New Brunswick in the house. Like the cyborg in Parliament wearing a headset. I ain't wearing no headset. Hello from smoky southern Manitoba. Well, yeah, you know what? Let's talk about the fires for a second, because that's an important one too that everybody's subject to. Eventually I'm going to have to get faster at this, aren't I? Switching back and forth. Whoop, there's two of me. One too many. Okay. So the fires. Nope, we'll do that one later. These are the fires. These are pretty big fires. Now, before Europeans came to North America, all of the wood fuel that was in the forest tended to burn every 20 years on average. It's different for different regions. Fires, the point that you should keep in mind is that there was a periodicity to the fires. And also, the native population set fires deliberately for hunting purposes and other purposes, but the wood fuel was consumed because humans weren't standing in the way of a natural process. There's a lot of people who want to sell you on the idea that climate change is causing fires. There's no scientific evidence to support that notion. What humans are doing, though, if you want to talk about their effect on climate, is we are preventing the removal of dry wood fuel from the forest floor. We are not doing controlled burns in the name of environmentalism. And we are delaying these big fires for as long as possible. And lo and behold, what happens? When they do start burning, they burn big. Now we've had a bad couple years. This is going to be a bad year. I mean, look at every one of these. So just let me explain what you're seeing if you're unfamiliar with this map. The red stars depict fires that have been detected, so the flares. So like when you have 80 to 100-foot tall flames, that's what these stars represent, the big flare-ups of the dry surface of the forest floor, but also up the trees. So like before the needles burn, the fire spreads to the forest floor. It goes up the dry tinder on the tree, and then it ignites the pine. The forest needs to do this to replenish itself. It's not just the trees themselves that require fire in order to replenish the forest. These areas that burn are going to be full of morels, full of mushrooms, and various types of life that have evolved to grow in the wake of fires. It's a completely natural process. But back to the map. The red stars represent hotspots that have been detected within the last 6 hours. The orange ones are the last 6 to 12 hours, and the yellow dots are within the last 12 to 24. These fires are going to burn all summer long unless the good Lord provides rain to put them out. But like I said, this is part of the natural system. And big fires are normal. There's a lot of people who are clamoring and saying the government's not doing enough. What's the government going to do to protect the forest? What's the government going to do to protect against fires and all this stuff? There is not enough manpower in Saskatchewan, in Alberta, probably in Canada to actually contain this. Do you have any idea? Like this little area here, I've actually driven up here several times in the last couple weeks just to look at this. I actually parked right here on this map. If you can see, yeah, you can see it. I parked there and I parked there, and I watched this fire slowly progress through all of this, and all of this is burned now. And this little area, I would estimate the amount of manpower that would be required to put a fire out in this little tiny area would be in the 100 range to actually do it properly. And look at what we're dealing with. A few days ago, we drove up there because they had started deploying helicopters and water bombers to control this so it didn't spread into, this is Saskatchewan, by the way. This is actually near Nipawin, which we've already talked about already. But to protect the communities of Smeaton and Choiceland and some of the homes that are up here and some of the farmland that's up here, they've deployed resources along this boundary, and they've done a pretty good job of keeping the fire from spreading further south. I mean, it's commendable. But they've deployed water bombers, they've deployed helicopters, and the absurdity of the effort really hit me while I was sitting there. You got this great big helicopter. I'm assuming it's got a pilot and a co-pilot. There's no way it's in the air with just one individual on that helicopter. All of the fuel, the cost of the helicopter itself, the cost of the pilots. Actually, I'm assuming they're getting paid. I mean, they're getting paid. But if they're not getting paid, they're volunteer pilots. But the helicopter costs money, the fuel costs money, and it's all in the effort of carrying this little basket of water back and forth between the water source and the forest. And this thing is just doing round trips, round trips, round trips. All you can do is try to keep it out of certain places. This is one little area that they're struggling to contain. This is one fire. There's nothing up here except cabins and fishing cabins and hunting lodges, and it's very sparsely populated, and there's no infrastructure. There's no roads. There aren't enough planes in the world to do something about this. You can't stop it. So I get really bothered, and I would do this whether it was Scott Moe in power or it was Carla Beck who formed government. Expecting politicians and blaming politicians for forest fires is absurd. There's only so much we can do, and protecting property is about the maximal extent of it, and it's even difficult to protect property around some of these isolated lakes where there's cabins because there's no infrastructure there. So all that is to say, you can't blame politicians for what is a completely natural process. Now, humans sometimes, let's go here. Are we in the right spot? Yeah, here's Flin Flon and Creighton. These people are in a tough spot. The fire is right next to this development. Now, people go and build houses and build towns in the midst of all of this wilderness that is periodically trying to burn. It has to burn. I was talking about this morning around breakfast. If you clear the forest floor of all the deadwood and all the debris, that's a strategy for avoiding fires, and you can do that on a small scale. However, later on down the road, you're going to pay the piper because the trees, which only have a finite life cycle, especially in this type of forest, we're talking 100 to 200 years, they will all die off and you don't have any underlying growth coming up to replace it. You're interrupting the normal process. The other thing that you can do is periodic controlled burns, which we are loath to do in the name of environmentalism. So it's inevitable. So the best we can hope for and pray for is that the people of Flin Flon and Creighton are protected by the resources that we have. And it's not to say that I don't have sympathy for their plight or the people who have lost fishing cabins or lodges or whatever, but look at the scale of this. And there's too little roads. There's just not enough manpower. This is not the fault of government. This is nature doing its thing. So, anyway, that's the fires. Let's go back to the chat. Oh, and I've completely lost control of the chat. Hey, Frank, nobody brings up Bill M44 and how every single conservative MP signed in favor. This bill allows all temporary foreign workers to become permanent residents. Yes, it provides a pathway to citizenship, as they often love to call it. And there isn't, and there hasn't been in the past, much difference between the Conservative Party of Canada and the Liberal Party of Canada when it came to immigration. The only difference really started to show up when Justin Trudeau started making whispers of changing Canada's immigration policy. I mean, I think they have to. I think they got to tap the brakes. Unless their intention is to completely destroy the country, which maybe it is, but there's a certain level of destruction and demographic destruction that I feel doesn't serve their advantage unless they've got a third-party country they all plan to flee to. At some point, they've got to tap the brakes if they intend to stay here. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. But the Laurentian elites, which we're all so fond of talking about and identifying, which we should identify, they make money off Canada. It's a $2.2 trillion economy. That $2.2 trillion economy cannot be maintained if they destroy the entire thing through rampant, uncontrolled mass immigration. At some point, somebody has to do something about it. But, conservatives are notoriously defensive and cowardly when it comes to taking up these issues because they're so desperately afraid of the labels of CBC and the Liberal Party. And we saw, a little bit of a tougher conservative line in the lead up to the last election. I think Pierre Poilievre's the best they've done in the last 3 cycles. We need more, though. We need more Apple eating Pierre. We need more strength. We need less fear. I was talking to somebody the other day, having a conversation privately about the cowardice of the Conservatives not taking up the cause of banning sex-selective abortion. So you have people coming into the country to terminate pregnancies based on the sex of the unborn child. That's pretty repugnant. I think the majority of Canadians would be happy to have a choice when it comes to that. The idea that killing off a human in the womb because they're a girl is kind of repugnant in a modern society. But they've never had the choice, and the Conservatives are afraid to touch it. Why? It's never been tried. The one thing the Conservative Party's never really tried is just going full bore on strength and actually fighting and opposing. And like even Pierre, he was doing good and he was debating and he was engaging more assertively. And then he fell back on talking points. They got defensive at some point. They got to stop that. Strength is what makes Conservatives win, not weakness, not defensiveness. Offense all the time. Hello from Libtardville, Kitsilano, the province where a birthed British Columbian can't go to a provincial park unless you're a supposed Indian. Yeah. Yep. 4 more years of that for you guys. Bob Ross says, bless you, Frank. Thank you, Bob. Logan White, nobody's talking about how draconian M103 is. Sure. It's a motion. It's not the same as a bill, but there's so many things. I mean, pick your poison. And that's a poison we know. There's more poison to come. I fully believe that Bill C-63 is going to make a comeback. Now, okay, I'm going to actually say there's some caveats there. The King's speech, which was handed to him by the Liberal Party of Canada, by the governing Liberals, by Marx Carney, was just a repetition of their talking point. And I covered this already in my video. It does not mean that Canada's over. When he did the land acknowledgement, it doesn't mean that the United States automatically owns Canada. I cannot figure out how people are making that leap. They circle pictures of the throne with 2017, and they say that that's the date that Canada ended. Canada didn't end on that date. The chair, it's well recorded who built the chairs, who commissioned the chairs. It was part of our 150th anniversary. If you haven't noticed, the police can still arrest you. The police can still fine you. The courts are still functional. They can still put you in jail if they want to, but they don't. I mean, the jails are all over capacity, which is why releasing violent criminals seems to be the strategy of the day. We're not building jails. We're very consumed with the human rights of criminals. Man, you want to talk about that, actually, for a second. Let's talk about that Pickering stabbing guy, because this is the statement. The mayor said, the mayor of Pickering, the boy was affected by the burden of mental health, adding that the arrest was very troubling because of the impact it will have on his life. The son of a bitch stabbed an old woman to death. What has happened to this country that politicians virtue signal about the poor conditions of the poor criminal? We got to start putting these people in jail. They don't even have to be good jails. We built tent cities for refugees. In 2017, I think it was. Let's build tent cities for criminals. Stick them up north. Stick them up in the bush where they can't get out. Take them 500 kilometers up in the bush and give them minimal. Make sure that they've got food, they got water, they got bathrooms. Build a great big wall and throw them all in there. Because everybody else that's just trying to go about their business, that just wants to exist, is sick and tired of the crackheads and the meth heads and the junkies on the buses. Sick and tired of not being able to go to their bank ATM to draw out cash because there's a bunch of homeless people waiting there to accost them. This is all symptomatic of Olivia Chow. Last week, I made a video on it, where she proudly stood in front of a bunch of sea cans and was very proud of the fact that retirees were going to be able to, 51 retirees were going to be able to live inside of these sea cans. Sea can housing. That's all you can afford anymore. And she was super happy. And at the end of the video, she was like, yay! What does it say about the nature of politics here in Canada that we live in an era where a politician can stand in front of Secan homes and be proud of that and signal to the public, and that's the way that they get elected, and that's the way that they vote. There's so much to parse there. It's not just about the politicians, it's about the people who vote for them. The mayor of Pickering, who was elected, can talk about the burden of mental health and talk about the arrest be very troubling because of the impact it will have on this poor kid's life who just stabbed someone to death because he's probably been radicalized. And that's something else we got to talk about too. Once I find the article again. Actually, we should just go to that, shouldn't we? Because it's related. I want to talk about the difference between public schools and what your kids are expected to learn in the public school system. And not just the public school system, but also Catholic schools are public schools as well. Where are we? Nope, that's a whole other subject right there that we need to get into. Yeah, this is a great article. I actually tried to make a video on this yesterday just for the channel, and I thought, maybe I'll just go live. I had to do that live stream last night with Clyde. It was a 3.5-hour gong show. So I was kind of glad I saved my energy. I just didn't feel right yesterday about what I was generating. But anyway, this is Liberals Embrace Islamic Extremism in Canada. When FBI Director Kash Patel condemned Canada, allowing Islamic terrorists to gain a foothold in North America, Canadian politicians and pundits, including the new Prime Minister Mark Carney, dismissed Patel's assertions as baseless fear-mongering. Now, if you've watched my channel, you know there's nothing baseless about this fear-mongering at all. It's not fear-mongering. It's accurately depicting what's happening. We are a money laundering powerhouse for terrorist organizations all over the world. We embrace extremism, particularly Islamic extremism. We allow Palestinian protesters to rage on the streets, smash the windows out of businesses, target ethnic groups for destruction, and preach their hate all over Canada, and our politicians proudly stand up for it. We talked about in a video this week how Elizabeth May thinks there's a gay genocide happening in this country, and I cleverly, tongue-in-cheek, call it a gayicide. She thinks there's a gayicide in Canada. She actually sponsored a petition talking about the gayicide. Nothing could be more delusional. It's June tomorrow. I used to love the month of June. I used to think June was like one of the best months of the year. And then it became this rainbow fun fest. And now I kind of dread it because you get sick of having it shoved down your throat. But I digress. She supports the idea of a gayicide, and yet she and so many politicians in Canada support Islamic extremism, where there's no room for any of the Rainbow Brigade, even just your normal average gays and lesbians. There's no room. Forgetting two-spirits and furries and trans everything. The contradiction is enormous. Gays for Palestine, anybody? Unfortunately, it is clear that the Trump administration is correct. Radical Islamic ideology has become endemic in Canada over the past decade. The Canadian Security and Intelligence Service itself has confirmed that since 2015, radical Islamic ideology has become commonplace throughout Canadian society as a result of the porous borders and the Liberal government's unwillingness to effectively regulate the influx of international migration into Canada. We're just dumping people in this country, and we are not vetting them. We vet legal, lawful gun owners better than we vet our immigrants in Canada. Numerous terrorist leaders and those with intimate connections to terrorist organizations such as Samidoun, and the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine have been permitted to migrate within the Canadian state and promote their own nihilistic ideology over the past decade. It's not just promotion of the ideology. They're engaged in vast criminal enterprises here in this country using our real estate system to launder that money, which then ends up funding terrorism overseas. Canada is a clearinghouse for international crime. The world knows it. Only Canada seems to not know it, even though you can see the evidence all around you, as we've covered extensively on this channel. Now, this is an important one, which I'm not sure I've targeted in my work. I may have mentioned it, but I don't think I've talked about it. Islamic schools in Canada are not compelled to abide by a standardized curriculum and consequently covertly promote radical Islamic ideology and extremism to vulnerable children in Canada at one prominent Islamic school in Canada, the East End Madrasa. Administrators were recently pressured into issuing a public apology after it was exposed for teaching children that treacherous Jews conspired to kill the Prophet Muhammad. Since 2015, explicit Islamic terrorist acts have been increasingly prevalent in Canada. They're not teaching in their Islamic schools the gender unicorn. They're not preaching against the family in their schools. Now, in some ways, that's something we should look to, because we are tolerating through our public education system, which isn't really an education system anymore, the targeted destruction of the nuclear family, the targeted destruction of normal relations between a man and a woman and the children that they generate, healthy demographics, the sustenance, the life's blood of Western civilization is being destroyed, and you're forced to pay for it via your education levy on your property taxes and your PST, and to a lesser extent through your income taxes in the federal government. But the religious schools don't have to do that. And we're not talking about the Catholic education system, because they're publicly funded and they have to teach this madness too. The Muslims are not destroying themselves with this self-destructive ideology. They're exempt. And worse still, they teach much more extreme things. Since 2015, explicit Islamic terrorist acts have become more increasingly prevalent in Canada. According to data from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, nearly a dozen terrorism-related incidents have occurred in Canada or abroad involving Canadians since October 7, 2023 alone. In addition, the number of terrorism charges laid in Canada jumped 488% last year. This should disturb your lawmakers. This should disturb your media. It should disturb your government. It should disturb the provinces. If the federal government's not going to fix this, people like Premier Scott Moe, Premier Daniel Smith, you would think they would have an interest in educating their electorate and doing something at the provincial level to stop this. Instead, everybody's kowtowed and afraid of being called a racist or a bigot. Just words. Words that are used as weapons to disguise and hide the truth of what's actually happening right here in Canada. Canadian police have foiled 6 terrorist plots in the last 12 months alone, with arrests spanning from Edmonton to Ottawa to Toronto. The Liberal government recently publicly downplayed a report from the United Kingdom's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office that a terror attack attempt in Canada is very likely. Again, the world knows about Canada. The world knows about our criminal enterprises that are international in scale. The world knows about our money laundering. The world knows about our infiltration by China, but not just China, but by these terrorist organizations. The world knows about our money laundering and funding of terrorism right here in Canada. The Canadian government lies about it, and they hide it from you. It's a reality that everybody else knows, except for Canadians. We need to change that. The globally renowned Counter-Extremism Project has recently reported that within the past few decades, several hundred Canadian civilians have been killed or injured in incidents related to violent extremism, and that in spite of the glib posturing and apparent policy shifts in the Trudeau government, Canada has historically viewed violent Islamist extremism as one of the leading threats to national security, until Trudeau came along. And we've been sweeping this stuff under the rug increasingly. In 2024, and to Kash Patel's point, over the past decade, Canada's porous borders and the Liberal government's tolerance of Islamic extremism have functioned in concert to enable various terrorists to transgress from Canada into America to commit crimes and even mass murder. In 2024, Mohammed Shahzib Khan, a longtime resident of Canada, attempted to carry out a mass shooting in support of ISIS in New York City. And Shamsuddin Jabbar, the ISIS terrorist who committed the horrific Bourbon Street attack in New Orleans, was also previously permitted to travel freely between Canada and the U.S. Furthermore, the Canadian Security and Intelligence Service itself has long recognized Canada's modern transformation into an exporter of Islamic terrorism, and for years has attempted to monitor and respond to the threat of Canadian extremist travelers. According to Director Patel, whose take is far more accurate than Canada's own take, over 300 known or suspected terrorists crossed into the United States last year illegally. 85% of them came through Canada and the northern border. Now, people have talked about illegal immigration, how Trump mentioned that our porous border was a problem, that drug exports to the United States were a problem, that human trafficking into the United States was a problem. And a lot of people denied it. They said that only 1% of the drugs that go into the United States were seized on the Canadian border, ignoring the fact that it's a massive border and it's under-policed. None of the freight traffic, none of the rail traffic. Our ports are wide open, all the things I've covered before. But it should say something that with 1 million people crossing into the United States a year from Mexico, terrorist apprehensions, known terrorist apprehensions from Canada into the United States are hundreds of percent higher, even though the percentage of people crossing into the United States from Canada illegally is much lower. That's how bad things are. 100 known or suspected terrorists have crossed into this country illegally, 64 or so of them from the north. Even Justin Trudeau, Canada's previous prime minister, was recently forced to admit that bad actors have been exploiting Canada's immigration system for their own interests. That wasn't new information when Justin Trudeau said it. It's old information. He talks about bad actors, and it's not that clever, but it's a device for shifting blame from the government onto the people abusing the system. So the concept that I guess he's trying to lean on is that people trying to get into this country, people clamoring to get into this country, have an obligation, are honor-bound to use the system responsibly. Yet, he acts surprised and shocked and even hurt, because we know he likes to cry, that bad actors would actually use that wide open door for malicious purposes. He knows, they know the problem that they've created, but they want to shift the blame. It's always about shifting the blame off the government, who leaves the door wide open and who encourages the advantage that's being taken by these people. It's never the government's fault. It's always someone else. Despite all this, the Canadian political establishment and the media have stubbornly denied any suggestion that Islamic extremism has successfully entrenched itself within Canada. I mean, how delusional can you be? I mean, little Springbrook, Ontario. If you go and look at that on a map, I'm not going to look it up for you right now. It's very close to Sterling, and somebody in here is from Sterling. There was a church near a road. It's by a road called Sweet Road. It's right on the main drag heading into Springbrook. It was a church. Now it's a mosque. Mosques are springing up all over the country. Mosques are teaching things like what we just covered in the religious schools that are very outside of what's being taught via public education here in Canada. And nobody's telling you the story. Does anybody remember when Kathleen Wynne went to visit a mosque and was made to sit in the back? She had to put a scarf on her head. And the premier of the province was made to sit in the back row. Compare and contrast that to Marine Le Pen when she was invited into a similar building and asked to wear a head covering, and she just left because she had self-respect as a citizen of Western civilization. More importantly, it is readily apparent that until the Liberal government starts to earnestly secure Canada's borders and begins to excise Islamic extremism from within Canadian society, Canada will continue to serve as a womb for Islamic extremism in North America and a constant source of terrorism in the U.S. This was written by William Barclay, who's a political theorist and private consultant and a long-term contributor. I just thought that article was brilliant. It's been sitting on my desk for a while. I wanted to cover it. And this one's just a little throwback. Canadian MPs join international push for recognition of Palestinian state. This is the other thing. Instead of being consumed with concerns about domestic issues here in Canada, increasingly your MPs are concerned about issues that are happening in other countries. Why are we even having a discussion about the conflict between Khalistani Sikhs and Hindus? Why? Why is that our problem? Why is it Canada's problem that the Jews and the Palestinians are off to killing each other again? I'm more concerned with what's happening in Canada because we have enough problems of our own, if anybody hasn't noticed. Life on the native reserves isn't getting better, and the people on those reserves are not getting represented any better. I mean, the chiefs have come out and they've loudly declared that they oppose independence. But the people who are subject to these chiefs have taken to social media and have said that they might be in favor of a different outcome. If we started asking and inquiring about Native American opinion, we might find that it is out of sync with what the chiefs want. And that's the power of social media. Forgive me 1 second. That's very smoky here. That's the power of social media. That's why we're facing censorship. That's why we're facing C-63, I think, again in the fall. With one caveat. The Liberals were not able to achieve their majority. And if they're smart, and they are, don't ever get it wrong. The big red machine is smart. They might suck at governing, from our perspective. They're very good at winning elections. They're very good at controlling the Conservative Party of Canada through their narratives, through their political machinations and their strategies. The big red machine has, well, actually, there's a news article on here about this. You know what? Let's go back to the comments and then we'll return to this stuff because I've been going off for a while, and I want to actually get to your comments. Talk to your membership or just make your videos. I don't know. I think that's a criticism. I don't have a membership. I've got subscribers. I got people. I got viewers. I got users. Haven't had a federal government for almost a year. Why do we need them? Well, actually, we have had a federal government. We had a government the entire time. And that's a distinction that people got to get. Parliament's not government. Parliament appoints government. Parliament is not cabinet. Parliament is not the prime minister. And more importantly, none of those things mentioned are as powerful as the governor general and their signature. So the entire time that we were under prorogation, we had a functional government. That's what people don't understand. You don't elect your government in Canada. Your government's appointed by the people you elect. And we should know after 9 months of not having Parliament in session that that's the case. Shout out from Niagara, Mike Muzzle. Bulldog says, Canada. Betty Zoom, good to see you. Always hello, Frank from Niagara. She's so reliable and humble. Hello, Betty. Philip is Italian by birth, but Canadian all the way. Italian beer sucks. Oh, clearly been a conversation. Someone's an alcoholic. There's a whole, oh wow, I've missed a lot. Bono is transitioning. BC Premier David Eby is in Asia right now, supposedly making trading deals. I wonder what kind of deals. Wants to benefit him? Absolutely. They're not going to be for you. None of the laws on the books and none of the deals that have been signed have benefited the Canadian people for a very long time. And it's not just the fault of the Liberal government. You can go back to the Harper years. You can go back to the Foreign Investment Protection Act. You can go back to the clamoring for a free trade agreement with China. It's always to the advantage of the powers that be. Philip says, Frank, no wonder you only have 28,000 subscribers. Only? Frank, be real, Frank. Quit the BS. What are you even on about, dude? What's your problem? Philip is no troll, is a real person. In fact, lives... I don't even know why you people are going on. Glenda Coker says 700,000 migrants in 2025. That's legal ones. That's legal ones. Dave B says, you did it, Frank. Congrats. This is great. Thank you. Frank keeps reading some paper like we are stupid or what we can't see the printing ourselves. Come on, Frank, get a grip. Guys like you are envious. You're jealous. You don't like success. You don't like seeing people thrive. You don't like seeing thriving community. You see in me the thing that you wish you were. And that's why you spend your time in my comments section taking the mickey out of me. But you can't stop me. The only thing you do is stop yourself. You're wasting your time. Go build something better. Go do something better. If you think I've got it wrong, spend your time correcting me through constructive action. Everything else is moronic and vain. You people are envious. It's the same as people who take the mickey out of Clyde Do Something or any of these other channels. They've tried. They've done some work. It hasn't worked for them, and so they gave up. And so they spend their time trying to take the mickey out of people like me. Look at what we got. We got a community of 28,000 on YouTube. We got a community of 23,400 on X. We did it all organically. We haven't monetized. I haven't done any ad spend. I mean, that's awesome. And then some loser, Philip, is going to come in here and try and talk trash. You people are just a waste of time. Go do something. Go build something. Get offline. Don't just go and touch grass. Go work on something. Provide something of value. All right, let's just get down to the bottom here, because I think I've noticed a lot of people who can't even speak French in a small town in Quebec. And it's getting worse. We used to see Mexicans working the fields and such, but it's very different now. It is very different now. And you're right. There used to be migrant labor that came up to pick the apples and work the fields. But now it's turned into, they don't just pick the apples and work the fields anymore. And it's not just Mexico, which is continental and shared some kind of common cultural bond. We're bringing people in from cultures that have very little familiarity with anything that's going on in Canada, and they're getting all the jobs at all the major chains. And they're basically, you got a kid that's 16, 17 years old and just wants to go make a wage somewhere. They're having to compete with foreigners. And it's not fair to them, but as I said before, it's not even fair to the foreigner who's basically a glorified serf. If they step out of line, they'll just get deported and they'll bring in another one. And that happens too. The system makes money for the very rich, for the people who own those chains. It's not designed for you. It's designed for the Laurentians. Greta, the other one, says, we know that Philip is full of, yeah, I mean, he's just, I don't know, there's just 100 of them. You try to live on YouTube, earn a BS living, good for you. But be real, don't piss on me. I say CRA, go after the bastard. Who, me? I'm up to date, man. I'm compliant. It's the same with, there was a guy in the comments section who was just like, all of you content creators need to be audited because you're all avoiding taxes. Do you think we're that stupid? Do you think that anybody that's making money online, where all of the transactions are digital and tracked, is not reporting that to the CRA? Like, are you stupid? Are they that stupid? Do you think you can be successful online and be that stupid at the same time? Maybe the odd individual. But tax evasion on digital transactions is stupid beyond all description. You know what, Philip, bud? Let's see, what can we do to you? We're going to put you in a timeout for 24 hours. There you go, Philip. Go enjoy the silence. Sad when the only conservative Canadian Ottawa I trust was born in Russia. If you don't like Frank, why do you watch him? Well, a lot of people watch me just to get their hate on. They're fed, they feed off it. And if that is you, Philip, that's spamming those emotes, thank you. I really appreciate that. Giving me the engagement helps feed the algorithm. So keep it up. Please. I keep seeing these Bitcoin emails and I just end up sending them money. Don't do that. Keeping those scammers out of my comment section. You know, I took 2 months on Twitter to get rid of one scammer that was impersonating me. And so what he would do, or what they do, is they create a handle that's very close to your own, and they start following all of your followers. And this is a problem because I only follow, I think, 157 people on X. So there's a big pool of people who, once they're getting followed, they feel really good about that. Everybody wants to know you, right? And so the scammers do that. They follow, and then they get a follow back, and then they message them about a 10x scam. Send me this, and I'll send you back 10x, or some investment scheme or whatever. So I had to have everybody mass report the account, and then I had to submit my ID and a bunch of other verification data to X, and we finally got it taken down. And you know what? We're going to be doing that till the end of time. The more we grow, the more we're going to have to do that, and it sucks. Oh no, where's the free speech, Frank? You know what? I could ban that guy, but I put him on a timeout, and he's going to be back complaining more. He's got free speech. He can start his own channel. He can start his own social media effort. He's going to be able to talk again in here. But I mean, it's just, why waste your time? That's the part that gets me. Like, why waste your time? There's no real purpose here. I'm not running for politics. I'm not promising people something I'm not delivering. I make videos. I do research. I read a lot of books. I spend a lot of time on these things. I don't know why it's so sinful to some people that, I might get donations for this, that I might get support for this, or that I might have, that some people have monetization and ad revenue. I mean, you put time into something, you can get paid for it. Do people not get paid for work? When you go and do your job, do you not get paid? Why is that so shameful? I think maybe it is that people who never generate content and don't know what it entails don't view it as work. But it is work because it all takes time. People have some really funny opinions, but it's honestly... you really think that's the case? Someone is so stupid. Sierra would probably audit YouTubers a heck of a lot more. I don't know who they audit, but I mean, if you're dealing with digital transactions, you're stupid if you don't report it. Like, it's so stupid. The critics aren't as well read and up on what's really going on versus guys like Frank, Clyde, Moose, and others. They're presenting info for you to think, apply critical thinking, and they're worth watching. And you know what else? It's not easy. Back east, so we talked about this last night on the Clyde stream a little bit, how I was making videos very aggressively in 2018, 2019, 2020, and a little bit into 2021, and then I just disappeared because I met a couple people last night. It's really cool. If you guys remember, if you've been with me long enough, you'll remember the farm reports where we demonstrated how to grow things in a greenhouse, and grew the pandemic garden in 2021. And we put a lot of that on video, and we encouraged people. Like, it was about taking action. It's like, if you're nervous in the world, the unknowns are making you scared. And they should, because there was a lot of things that weren't known at the time. COVID-19 was raging in China, and it looked like it was going to be really bad. And the government was telling everybody to look the other way. It's safe. There's no problem. We can't stop flight traffic from China. We can't actually contain it because that would be too racist. And non-citizens are people too. And then, they flipped their script and they shut down the supply chain and they sent everybody home out of work and they started printing money. It's like, holy things are really going to break here. But instead of going crazy, what can you do? How can you increase your own personal resilience? And my wife and I sat down and we're like, you know what? We should just film the farm and we should put that online and we should encourage people to do it. And so we did that. And those were some of the last videos we made before I dropped off the face of the planet for a couple of years. And again, the reasons I dropped off the planet, and this is getting to the point of like how hard it is. And I'm at a smaller level. Like, I'm no Moose on the Loose, I'm not Clyde Do Something, and some of these other channels. But I've chatted with some of these people, and the amount of harassment, or people who dox them, come and find them in their home. Like, I had that part happen to me at an even smaller level. I had people coming to my house. Because with that public-facing farm, my address was online. I was at a farmer's market 2 days a week for 4 hours. Anybody could find me there. And people did. And people found me at my house. They just showed up at my door, knocked on the door, and said, hey, man, I seen a video of yours online, and I just came to say hi. Now, they were all friendly. All the ones that came and found me were friendly. But one morning I got up, And I went outside, and it was clear that there were people walking around my house, at least one person, maybe more, walking around my house while I was asleep inside. I had a newborn son, had a wife. She might have been pregnant at the time. I don't 100% know the timeline, but I at least had one child. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, I got to change my life. And that began the process. I got offline for a while. Attention faded. People stopped showing up because without any kind of spotlight, there's no incentive for people to show up. And I sold off my farm and I moved and I live somewhere else now and I'm back and I don't intend to go away. And I live in a spot where I can see people coming from a long ways away and I'm much more prepared for that outcome if it ever comes to that. But my problems were a fraction of some of the problems some of these other YouTubers have had. And that goes for people that aren't even just political commentary. Like you look at the Outdoor Boys. Brilliant channel. Luke, Tom, and Nate with the Outdoor Boys. I don't know if you guys seen it. My kids love that channel. This guy goes camping. He does all these things. He goes on trips. And he's probably one of the most likable people that has ever come out of America. And he had to shutter it. He had to shut it down because he can't go anywhere and do anything without people constantly harassing him. His family has no privacy anymore. So that's one of the consequences. So for the people who think that you shouldn't be able to get paid for this, in any way that people choose, this is why I'm always careful when I say, I haven't monetized yet, and, people, I don't judge anybody who's having advertising or sponsoring or monetizing or doing that because there's a cost associated on the back end for being on this side of the camera. Sold the farm just like Carney did to Canada. Well, a little bit differently. He says, you see, I actually worked that farm. I actually owned that farm. It was mine. Carney doesn't own Canada, but he's claiming the political power to sell us off for his own benefit anyway. Joe Bobbycat says, watch you on Clyde all the time. Thanks for your old school wisdom. You're welcome. Clyde's a good guy. He's never asked me for anything, and he's only ever been helpful. And some people take the mickey out of him. They call him Clyde Do Nothing, which is, I've actually laughed with Clyde about that. But, what he said to me when we were talking about that, he said, I work awfully hard at doing nothing if I'm doing nothing. And it's true. Frank, will you ever re-upload the videos you made before and throughout COVID, perhaps on your website? Maybe one day. I have re-uploaded some content, but mainly I don't have time for it. It's over. It's just like the farm reports. We were going through them last night and on Discord. And they're awesome, but I should almost, if I'm going to do it, I should do it again. I should build something from scratch, but I don't know if I have the time for that. There's only so much time in the day. I wish I had 2 or 3 of me, and then I'd probably be doing 2 or 3 different things at the same time. Honda says, thanks, Frank. Great live stream with Clyde last night. Yeah, it was a bit of a gong show. Kind of went off the rails. We were diverging all over the place, but I still think it was pretty good. I haven't talked to Clyde yet today to see what he thought of it, but I think it was all right. Greta, the other one, I followed you then with your wife's videos too. Yeah, I mean, and that's the other thing. People's memories are much more valid than what the kind of slander and stuff that comes out. Like during the previous election, because it was the election, I was talking about the PPC a bit, and that always brings the haters out. They're still there. This would be the first time I've mentioned the PPC in a video, I believe, since the election. And I get messages all the time. I just got one yesterday from somebody saying every time they're critical of the PPC, they get called a Frank Vaughan disciple. So I live rent-free in a lot of their heads. Joe Bobbycat says, like I say, if you don't want to pay me for my expertise, then take it to an idiot that works for free. I will charge twice when it's all effed up. Yeah, that's true. So often trying to cheap out on things is actually costing you more money. Frank, how come no one has made a Doge Canada? Because Canada is a bureaucratic constitutional monarchy. Nobody wants to make Doge here because the bureaucracy is what runs Canada, and the bureaucracy wants everything to stay exactly the same. Nobody's interested in actually cleaning up the nation's finances. I mean, Mark Carney is going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars, more money than Trudeau ever spent. The idea of fiscal responsibility is out the door. Nobody cares. Maybe they feel that Canada is too far gone. Maybe they think it's bankrupt already, and the only thing they can do is make money at the public's expense. I don't know. There's not, I mean, even the Conservative Party of Canada. Did they campaign on balancing the budget? Aggressively cutting waste, fraud, and abuse? And further to Doge, I mean, look at the headwinds that Elon Musk and Donald Trump have experienced for simply trying to rein in government spending. What we call the deep state, what we call the swamp, is often just the bureaucracy, and the bureaucracy doesn't want its power taken. You guys might remember, I mean, it didn't get enough media attention, but Elon Musk, in one of his discoveries, found something like a dozen computers that could just print money. Like anybody could go up to the computer terminal and just output money without any record of it being outputted. The U.S. has problems, but Canada has even bigger problems, I think. Smaller scale, but bigger problems. Most Canadians I've given up on, including myself, not a goofy bootlicker. That's not good, man. Don't give up on yourself. I mean, you're standing on the top side of the soil. Every single day you can do better. Every single day you can build better. Every single day you can improve yourself. Don't give up on yourself. You should be your temple, the one thing that you can fall back on for some stability. Pat Roach says, have you heard about the ex-conservative MLA that preempted the independence movement in Alberta by posting a question about not becoming independent? No, I don't know what that's all about. DB Cooper says, you're a bum, Frank. I'm hardly a bum, my friend. I've worked very hard to be a bum. I have a beautiful family. I live in a nice home. Yeah, I don't know. To be a bum, you gotta live on the streets, don't you, bud? Could you further define that for me, DB? Let's have some fun with you. Give me your best insults and invective for a little while here, for the entertainment of the chat, and I'll read them out. I'll give you that. Hot Dog Chick says, is this live? Yes, indeed it is, Hot Dog Chick. Wholesome Homestead Kitchen. Canada is not its own country. No, we've been sold out and bought out. We've been converted into a resource colony with an extensive public service. E Sharp says, the cheap becomes expensive. Yeah, it's crazy. Q, ride the tide or duck and hide. 40 million shares of Brookfield. How much control would Canadians have if they owned controlling shares? Well, it's a positive question. It's not going to happen. Headwinds. Giddy. Frank Vaughan, I hold 4 Red Seal TQs, now retired as my body has given up. I worked as a machinist, welder, millwright, and heavy mechanic. That's awesome, man. Good for you. My brother's an industrial electrician, and yeah, it's not easy. They don't make it easy to get those industrial qualifications anymore. I don't think it's ever been easy, but like some of the testing was really intense, and I'm really proud of him for the work that he did. And it shows. I mean, he's now responsible for one of the biggest manufacturing mills in Canada, and it runs properly because of his expertise. So good for you, man. You put in a lot of time. If Carney continues on as PM, we all know what's going to happen to our country. It's done for, totally. Yeah, I mean, I think he's here to loot. You know, it almost feels like we're in receivership. There's a lot of people who've put different words on it, but you kind of get the feeling in the sense that we're at the end, and he's here to just guide the ship under the water and get as much out of it as he possibly can. Like, I can't believe how little concern for message consistency they've had since they won the election. They're not even pretending. The entire emphasis of the election campaign was bringing the Liberal Party back to the center, restoring some accountability, elbows up, combating Trump, and it was very excited. It was very passionate on their behalf. It was very much increasing the stress levels of the entire nation and specifically their base. And then the election happened, and everything just went to business as usual. It could be Justin Trudeau still in office, and nothing would look much different. All of the messaging, all of the talking points have been abandoned, and now it's like they're just in the process of looting the country openly. They give a press conference here and there, and they just smile their way through it. And the liberal base has just moved on. They've completely forgotten what it was they were excited about. They just believe that the liberals are leading us into the promised land, and really they're leading us into a hole. And it's incredible how the public mind has been warped and shaped in such a way that they flip from one script to another script seamlessly without pausing for reflection. So much so, and so reliably, that the Liberal Party doesn't even concern itself with messaging anymore. When we see a politician like Kath McKenna simply disappear from the public eye after losing $142 billion, we see how easy it is to make cash and vanish. Yeah, there's no accountability, none whatsoever. Well, I have to go and pick some spruce tips. Foraging for food will become the norm soon. Well, spruce tips do taste good in a tea, but you're not going to survive on spruce tips. They'll just stave off the scurvy for a while. Let's see, what else we got? Republic of Alberta and Saskatchewan? Yeah, absolutely. We should want better for everybody. Like you should want more citizen empowerment. You should want more rights. You should want more choice. The relationship between Saskatchewan and Alberta has been exploitative since before Saskatchewan and Alberta were provinces, since before they were actually separate territories, since they were under the auspices of the Hudson Bay Company. This relationship's not going to change. It's just going to stay the same. And I think if we maintain the status quo and we don't make a bunch of noise. I went to a lunch last Sunday. There was about 30 people, and everybody was talking openly about the concept of separation. Everybody was talking openly about Trump and some of the policy ideas that he has and how smart they are. And this was the conversation around the lunch table. And to me, it's still fascinating because in Ontario, that conversation would never happen. Nobody would openly do that because they would be bullied out of existence. But here in Saskatchewan and Alberta, it's a pretty normal thing. I think that Carla Beck and the Saskatchewan NDP have really missed the mark. They should be encouraging Saskatchewan residents to voice their concerns with the federal government as vocally as possible, and even stepping in to try and organize that opposition to enhance, even if they're dedicated to the Federation. You have to enhance your hand heading into what's going to be constitutional negotiations eventually. Daniel Smith seems to have set up a timeline, roughly for everybody, of 2026, which means this situation is going to take some time to ripen. Ripening me and get worse before it gets better. But in the meantime, making as much noise as possible, getting together, having community meetings, town halls like Unified Grassroots and Nadine Ness is doing. This conference that's coming up in the fall in Calgary, where some of these ideas will be expressed, making as much noise as possible because we need change. The most devastating thing to the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan is the status quo. Whether you're a dedicated federalist and you love Canada and you hate the idea of breaking up with it, or you're a committed separatist, or you're a committed 51st stater, change is what you're all after. The status quo cannot stand. Faye Truhamchik, I enjoyed the podcast you did with Clyde last night. Great content here today as well. Haters will always hate. That's just what they do. Yep, it's part of it. Frank sold his farm because the livestock could stand his cottage cheese aroma. I never had livestock. I always left that to my betters. I tended to grow plants and garlic and food, vegetables. And I don't smell like cottage cheese. Cottage cheese doesn't even smell like anything, does it? It's like a pretty neutral smell. You got to pick a stinkier thing. Maybe like Parmesan or some other type of cheese that's stinky. Brookfield stock will skyrocket, says Bassomatic. The insiders are going to love dumping it on our retirement funds. Yes, well, that's another thing. I think Mark Carney's coming for the CPP because Brookfield and the CPP have already had their hands in each other's pockets. For instance, when Brookfield had distressed highway assets in India, they sold them to the CPP. And so now Canadians, anybody that's ever paid into the CPP, is proud owners of toll highways in India. But Brookfield got a bag of cash out of our pension fund. Now, the pension fund is something that warrants its own special video in terms of how much the people who work for the CPP are getting paid. Some of the most highest paid government-linked people in the country work for the Canada Pension Plan. And the relationship between Mark Carney and those individuals and that board of directors is lengthy. So I think, yeah, that's a fair guess. Brookfield's going to take vast advantage of pension funds here in Canada as well. And he still has avoided financial disclosure of his assets. So there's no doubt in my mind that he still holds stock in Brookfield, but we don't know how much. And we don't know how much. We know that he is deeply conflicted, massively conflicted. Just realized we're still staring at this article. I'm going to have to get better at this. He has massive conflicts of interest, which he hasn't even bothered to disclose in detail. And the Liberal voter doesn't seem to care. Now, the interesting thing, I was talking about the big red machine before. I think the Liberal share of the vote has completely maxed out. I think they hit their top this election cycle. And so what I wanted to address was maybe Bill C-63 doesn't come back because the censorship bill wasn't necessarily universally popular with the Liberal base. The King, in the speech that was prepared by Carney and his Liberals, talked about respecting the legal, lawful rights. I don't know if he used the word rights because we don't have any privileges of gun owners, lawful gun owners. If the Liberal Party has identified, as I think they have, that they have capped out and that their support is topped, then they know they're going to have to do something for the Conservative voter in order to suppress their turnout, because I don't think they can convert them at this point, suppress that turnout, and shore up because they didn't quite get their majority. The courts didn't really overturn enough seats for them to govern effectively, which is, probably one of the reasons why we're not. In the midst of all of these national emergencies that Mark Carney campaigned on, he's not convening emergency sessions of Parliament over the course of the summertime. So you may not see C-63 come back in the fall. That's the censorship bill. Maybe they back off on that. Maybe they cancel the orders in council because they don't do anything about crime. Maybe they do some common sense stuff to try and create a little bit more headroom for the Liberal Party because they fell short. And the big red machine, if I'm identifying that they've topped out the way that they are, you can bet your bottom dollar that the big red machine knows it too. You'll find more and more of these trolls hitting these common sense sites. Very true. Good afternoon, Canada. Best wishes from Colorado, says Scott S. Best wishes to you as well. Canada has been done for a long time, says Knight of Philemia. Betty Zoom. Not just saying, hi from Niagara. Did you hear that the Muslim people have the right to have more than one wife? There's a word for that. Yeah, it's called polygamy. And it is definitely part of their religious beliefs. I think they're capped at 4 wives. A woman can't have more than one husband, but a man can have 4, but no more. Frank, your election and continued political coverage is greatly appreciated. Keep up the good work. We will see where these turbulent times take us. We sure will. And I plan to be here for all of it. Canada became the plot for Atlas Shrugged. So sad. Anybody that hasn't read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, you really should. It is a brilliant book. Absolutely brilliant. I've listened to it, and or I've read it, I should say, and it's one of my favorites to listen to when I have to do a lot of hard work, a lot of repetitious work, or it's probably going to recycle into the circulation as I'm doing these 6 mile plus walks, because I'm going to need something to listen to. Right now, I'm just listening to the trees and enjoying the peace and quiet, but I'm going to have to turn that into work somehow. So I should be studying while I'm walking and preparing for these videos at the same time as I'm doing the exercises and the fat burning. So yeah, I'm going to have to work that in. Frank Vaughan has glorious hair. There, I said it. You know what? I don't know how to phrase this question. Sometimes I think about cutting it off again, but I don't know. Would people miss the hair if I cut it off? Chime in on my hair. What's your opinion? Would you still love me if I cut it? Do you think I should keep it? Do you think I should have it tied back? Do you think I should just leave it down and wild? What do you think? Not sure if I care what the CPP invests in. Well, brother, you may not care, but they're taking 12% of your money. And you may not see the full 12% if you're employed and you're getting a T4, but if you're self-employed, you get to pay, you just get to feel that whole 12% tax. Comes off before any other tax is applied. And then they take your money and they go and they give it to Brookfield. And it sucks. And it is a tax. There's a lot of people who say it's not a tax. It's been found by the courts to be a tax. It is a tax. Frank is Theoden of Rohan. I don't know if that's a good thing. I mean, he had a good redemption arc, but man, he was quite the doomer for a while. If it wasn't for Aragorn, things might have got real tough. I'm not committed either. All I care about is getting a job and living my life after university. Should that involve leaving Canada? I do not care. That's Blaze Lionheart. Yeah, I mean, you're young, man. If you're still in university, you're young. You got to make that decision. I'm in Canada. I think I don't think I'm leaving. Yeah, I'm not leaving. So, I'm committed to staying here. I live in a really good area. There's a lot of good people up here. Demographics are healthy. A lot of big families, a lot of baby bumps when you go out in public. Everybody's nice. The culture's still very strong here. The Canada that I remember from my childhood in Ontario still exists where I am. And I think there's a lot of value here in Western Canada. It has its problems too, the same problems that Canada has. But I think everywhere you go, you're going to find some degree of the same problems. And at some point, you have to stop going, and you have to stand and fight. And I think I used to say when I lived in Ontario that the West was my hill to die on, and now I'm here. So that's where I'm at in the story arc. Not one step back. Buy stock in military companies if you really don't give a damn. Well, if their stock value goes up, the world's going to pot. When people get pushed enough, they will. We Americans are wanting for this because we know it will happen, no doubt. Vancouver guy, good morning from Vancouver, BC, and Alberta need to exit and join President Trump. U.S. Constitution, our best hope for freedom. Somebody said to me the other day, you would trade one dictator in Canada for another dictator in President Trump. And outside of the obvious correction, which is that President Trump is not a dictator, he is severely constrained by the judiciary, Congress, and the Senate, among other things. And you're seeing that. He's facing headwinds in his second term, and it's a miracle he got anything done in his first term because the entire thing was derailed by Russiagate, impeachment, all kinds of bollocks. And that's before the debacle of 2020. I've always made the point in my videos that if we want to examine the merits of 51st statehood, we do it in a constitutional framework. We don't talk about President Trump. We don't talk about the individuals that occupy high office in the United States. We talk about how much better off citizen rights, human rights, would be if we were American citizens. We examine the Constitution. We look at the brilliance of the House representing the popular will, the brilliance of the Senate representing the land under their feet, the executive representing the necessity of authority, And when I say necessity, it's an anthropological rule. Human beings always organize into hierarchical societies. It's what we do. So the only question is, what does that hierarchy look like? Sometimes it looks like a dictatorship. The Americans and the brilliant signers, the founding fathers as we call them, and we shouldn't even call them the founding fathers, because the founding fathers, most of them were younger than me. These were men in their 20s and their 30s. It's kind of crazy to think about, because anybody who understands the world understands that youth is everything. That vigorousness, that zest for life, which oftentimes gets beat out of you by reality as you get older and leaves people less vibrant and less idealistic. These Americans, these founding fathers, had gone through difficult times. They'd gone through a hell of a civil war. And they put their heads together. These kids, and some of them weren't, some of them were older, but they came up with the Constitution. They came up with the United States. They recognized that the mob was a threat to justice. They recognized that landed interests themselves were a threat to justice. They recognized that dictatorship was a threat to justice or citizen rights. They recognized that a judiciary that was out of control would also threaten those things. So they came up with a nation that combined all of those elements and set them as checks against each other, and then created another layer, which was the states, which have their own individual sovereignty. Certain powers dedicated to the federal government, and the states, if they feel violated, can go to the courts and fight it out. So it's this layer upon layer upon layer of check and balance. Brilliant. It has its problems too, because humans corrupt everything they touch. But back to the point. If you compare the Federation of Canada with what the United States has in their Constitution, it is hands down better for the citizen to be an American. Has nothing to do with President Trump, has nothing to do with Rand Paul, has nothing to do with Bernie Sanders or Nancy Pelosi or anybody sitting in the seats. It has to do with the structure. Their system is better than our system, hands down. It's not even close. Anybody making the argument that it isn't better, I don't know. I don't even know where they're coming from. I think RFK is being constrained as well, of course. Yeah, it's amazing that RFK is even in the position that he is in, Kenzie, because of the vested interests of the big pharmaceutical companies in the United States. So I'm no man buns, Frank. You can't see it. It's a ponytail. I'm not into man buns. Spike your hair? I don't think so. I did that when I was a kid. I don't think I'm going to do that. The hair rocks. Wild is good. It's your hair. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to do with it sometimes. Sometimes, like, especially when I go to bed at night, it's always in my face. No, your hair is so nice. Leave it down. Well, that's another thing. If you can actually grow hair, maybe I should keep it. Never cut the hair, Frank. Wish I still had mine. Yep, that's another reason. My hair is my trademark. Yes, I'm afraid that's part of it too. Save Frank's hair, says Sandy Klein. Okay, look, I'm not cutting it off, all right? I'm not just going to go and cut it. No, do not cut it off. Patrick Roach, rock the hair. Dar, I was told that immigrants are getting $800 a month for car loans. Not sure if that's asylum or refugee. Look, man, they're getting a lot of money. You know, I think there's a video somewhere, it's tickling my mind, that I did where I broke down some of their benefits. There was the vague recollection I have is like $34, $55 or something that they get a month for certain refugee status. There's so much more than that, though. Getting fast-tracked for affordable housing over Canadians, the 1.6 million new immigrants, first-generation immigrants in Canada that are disabled. And they're disabled, whether they're on disability or not. I mean, if they're disabled, they're probably on disability. Why are we bringing independence? Why are we importing dependence? It doesn't make any sense. You got to go mullet. I think that would be fun. That would definitely be fun, but I'm not sure it would be good for the brand, Nova Scotia Cobra. You mentioned you like hockey. Going to be pulling for the Oilers in the Stanley Cup Finals? Yeah, I mean, yeah. If we're going to talk hockey, I want to see, everybody loves McDavid. He's a great player. I'm a big fan of Draisaitl. I love the way that man plays hockey. He's probably my favorite hockey player he might be my favorite hockey player of all time, actually. It's something I really like about his style. I like about his grit. I like his defensive play. I like his offensive play. I like his hands. Now, that being said, I don't watch a lot of hockey. A lot of it has to do with the woke nonsense that's crept in. And I got to admit, because I'm desperate to watch some hockey games with my son, because I have some really fond memories watching the Leafs lose with my dad. It wasn't so much the hockey as it was just spending time with dad. And my son seems into it. But the woke commercials, it keeps me away. And now they're starting to turn the uniforms into race cars too. Like the NHL is heading the way of Europe. It started out with like one small branding on the helmet, and then they put another one on the shirt, and now I think they're up to 3. They've got them on the shoulders, and it's not going to be long. They're going to be race cars, and it's going to suck. And because a lot of the class of the NHL it's slowly starting to erode, chasing dollars, and that's really what it's all about. But that being said, I don't think the game's ever been better. I think hockey is in its highest form right now. The game is brilliant at this moment. So I didn't watch the first round. I didn't watch the second round. I tuned into one game so far from the third round, and I'll probably try and make an effort to watch some of the finals, just to spend some time with the kid. And yeah, of course, I'm going to be pulling for the Oilers. I mean, why wouldn't I be? I really like their style. I really like their heart. I like that they've got a core set of players that they've been together a long time. They've got a lot of heart. You can tell they actually want to win. It's kind of got that brotherhood vibe. And it's not a toxic. It's not toxic like Toronto, like the Toronto Maple Leafs and their organization. It's no mistake, and it's actually very interesting psychologically and sociologically why the Toronto Maple Leafs always build teams that fail the exact same way. Different people, different generations, and they always end up in the same mold. And that's a statement to the toxicity of the media culture and the overall culture of that city. Until that changes, Toronto's never going to win anything. I mean, the second they start losing, people are hucking jerseys on the ice. Like there's a real problem there. Anyway, that's hockey. I do love the sport. It's my favorite game. Leave it long, you can always make it short by tying it up. Yep, you're right. That's a really good point. Keep the hair. All I can grow is a 2-foot beard. Nice. I've never done that. Every time it starts getting long, I get sick of it. I have to cut it off. Your hair is part of your brand. Frank, it is you, brother, like my beard. It's all white now. Yeah. Finished my graduate studies at 61. Canada is kind of ageist this way. Yep. Get the degree early and use it a lot. You're right. Yeah, we talk a lot about discrimination, but nobody wants to hire somebody. I mean, even somebody in their 40s, if you don't display a lot of skill, you might have a hard time, especially when you're competing with TFWs everywhere. Just getting through all the hair comments. There seems to be consensus that I shouldn't cut it off. I agree, Frank. Trank is being hamstrung despite his best efforts. Yeah, and I think that's one of those flaws with hoping Trump is going to come to all of our rescues, because there's a lot of that out there. This idea that it's inevitable, and that, one of the ones, the association between the term God wins and Donald Trump, you should never put your faith in a person, and you should never associate a human being with God. Huge mistake, but a lot of people do it. Trump is really busy trying to do what it is that he's trying to do, facing massive opposition from within It's less so within his own party, but there's still a big neocon wing. He still has rhinos that he has to deal with, negotiate with inside of the Republican Party. The courts are doing what they can to oppose. He's trying to cut the Gordian knot of the Ukraine conflict, dealing with the Middle East. He's got a lot on his plate. And I think maybe that's one of the reasons why the thing with Canada has kind of fallen on the back burner, because dealing with China and dealing with all these other issues, both domestically and foreign, I think that's tying up enough of his time that he can afford to spend a little less time on the Canadian file. But just thinking that he's running the world in one great big masterstroke I don't think that's good. I also think it doesn't keep you working. Binks Weeble, monetize the flowing hair. There's gold in them there locks. Does the hair need its own YouTube channel? Is that the question? Faye Knox says, I want the cup back in Canada. It's been a long time. Kenzie Kraken says, yep, encourage Frank to monetize ASAP. Well, okay, so here's another thing. Opinion for those of you that are still here. So when it comes to monetizing on YouTube, Clyde made a good pitch last night. He's been pitching me on this for a while, and he's not the only one. Wyatt Claypool over at the National Telegraph. Everybody's been pitching me on this idea. And it's not the money, because it's peanuts. Like, you're still going to be making, if you're going to make money, you're going to make it on donations. It's the only place to make it, unless you're selling advertising and shilling products. And I have had a couple offers of sponsorships. I've turned them down because I really don't want to shill products. I don't even want to do merch. That's another thing some people have talked about, is like getting t-shirts and doing all this stuff. Like, if I do that, I would rather take a surpluses that I got from donors. If I made enough money that I had a bank account, make a bunch of merchandise and give it away. Like, just give it away to people rather than sell it. But that's kind of down the chain of command. When it comes to monetization, it came up in the stream last night, and I actually asked Clyde, I'm like, they take 30% of those super chats and they take 30%. Like, that's a huge amount. And he actually made the pitch as to why that was a fair price. And I'd never heard anybody make that pitch before, and it had to do with the advertising that they do on your behalf, the increased reach that they give you, and the way that they tailor the reach to an audience that would actually be receptive to the content that you're creating. And in his opinion, they were well worth that 30%. I'd never heard anybody say that before. So that gave me something to think about. Now, if we monetized, Wyatt tells me that, first off, you can shut off most of the ads. So you might get served a truck ad or a Tropicana juice ad at the beginning of the video, and then that would basically it. Like, you can turn off all the business ads, you can turn off all the sex ads, you can pick and choose what you allow on your videos and still get the benefit of that increased reach, which they all tell me is very significant. It's like 50 to 60% more people will see, because you're dependent on YouTube to show YouTube your stuff. And YouTube doesn't see the incentive in showing a freeloader like me, because I'm a freeloader on their platform. I use all of their hardware, I use all of their services, and I don't pay them anything. And that's fine. But how can you expect them to do you any favors if you're not doing them any favors, right? So there is a way that we could monetize. We could turn it on, and we could turn off all of the invasive ads that are in the middle. We could have ads at the beginning, maybe ads at the end or something. We could still discourage people from doing super chats if you actually want to support the channel. As it says at the top of the screen, I threw that up there. Go to the website, go to the donate link. More of the money that you're trying to get to support me will come to me if you do that. Or you can go through a super chat, which you can't right now, but if we monetized, you could, and YouTube gets a piece, and then they're encouraged to promote what it is we're trying to do here. But there is a way we could monetize without having the invasion of all the ads. And it honestly seems like there's 90 odd percent of everybody thinks I should do it. And I've been hesitant. I'm still hesitant. But if you guys want to weigh in again in the comments section, I'll be happy to read it. Ragman says, I just use Brave. Yeah, I mean, you can totally. You can get ad blockers and things that solve that problem for you. The thing with like Ad Blocker Ultimate is you're still going to have to sit there through what looks like a loading screen, and that's where the ad would have been, but it removes the ad, but it still takes your time away. So I guess the creator's still getting credit for the ad, but the user's not seeing the ad, so there is that strategy. Frank, I think you being independent and being your own person and not beholden to no one, I'm assuming you think that's a good thing. You see, that wouldn't change. Like, that's the other thing. If I monetized on YouTube, there's a concern that the increased scrutiny might lead to strikes or a ban quicker. That maybe I get away with saying more. Because, I mean, I made that video 2 videos ago. It was about, and the reach on that video went way down because of the subject matter, and it had to do with King Charles and his links to questionable individuals that like children too much. I want to still talk about that stuff, and I'm not going to stop. Even if I monetized, I'm not going to stop doing that. But there might be more of a risk there that your content gets taken down or you lose your channel because of the increased scrutiny. So that's a consideration. But I'm not going to change. I'm not going to edit my words because I am careful what I say and how I say it already. And my approach to being careful is not going to change if I click monetize or not. I'm gonna say the same. Greta, the other one, says your merch would sell well, Frank. I'm sure it would. If you monetize, they can give you strikes for just about anything. That's true, Mitchell. But in the age of Elon Musk owning X, there's been a bit of a liberation on all social media. People can say a lot more than we could a year ago. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Now, this CBC thing, if you're familiar with my coverage on that, or you're familiar with Clyde's coverage on that little documentary where they were very proud to have gotten a large Canadian content creator taken offline, it's a canary in a coal mine. Might be a sign that YouTube's going back to its old ways, or it might be a sign that someone at YouTube made a decision that maybe is not in line with YouTube's current policy in light of the fact that X exists and we have an increased amount of free speech that we enjoy right now. And we're going to find out, because if there's litigation there, we might find out what communications went on between CBC and YouTube. YouTube has consistently sided with government whenever a government decides it wants to take down a channel. So there might be a lot for us to learn there, but it's hard to say if monetization would lead to increased scrutiny. It's my theory that it would, but I don't really know. Rumble takes 20%. Yeah, so I should probably look at Rumble too, like streaming there as well and putting my videos up there as well. Maybe there's a way that I can automate it. I love to donate directly, and yeah, Gabriella, that wouldn't change. Because honestly, that's the best deal for you, and it's the best deal for me. I think PayPal takes, it's bad. Like on a $5 donation, they take 91 cents, I think. But if it's a $10 donation, it's a little less. I think it's 74 cents. And then like as it goes up, they take a little less, but the number gets more, right? Like it's, but it's way cheaper than YouTube. But as Clyde noted last night, you're not getting the benefit of what YouTube provides to you for the cut that they take, because they want your channel to grow, because as you grow, they make more money and you make more money. So there's a mutually beneficial relationship there. I never really thought about what YouTube gives you in return. It's something I'm going to look more into. Binks Weeble says, we'll start supporting you with money again in a couple months. Brother, the reason I do things the way that I do things is because I don't want financial limitations that people are under to be a separation between my work and their consumption of that work. And admittedly, like there's so many different models, and I don't judge people for the models that they use. There's Patreon models, there's special access models, there's you stream for an hour and then there's 2 hours behind a paywall. I got nothing but respect for everybody's different model. I'm not judging anybody. But as for me, there's certain people that I've developed relationships with that I know watch my videos that I know don't have means. And it's personal. you know? A lot of you people, you've been around a long time. I may not know who you are. I may not know your face, but I know your names in the chat. And yeah, I want you to have full access. Frank, do what you need to do to keep your site up and running. I will. That's an interesting thing that's evolved too, is the idea that I may only have time to do this thing and that I have to make this thing work. Because, like, I'm reading Schellenberger's book right now. I'm still probably 2 or 3 days from finishing it, but, like, when I'm not actively making video or lining up video content, like, I got 2 browser windows full of stuff that I never get to. But, like, how those browser windows get full of stuff is because I spend a lot of time reading. There's a lot of reading involved in this. Not a lot of time watching video, a lot of time reading. And so any other endeavor that I can engage in, whether it's farming, building greenhouses again, which I'll tell you sometimes it's real tempting. It's real tempting to go backwards. It's all going to take time. And then time with the kids and my family, which is very important. I have to raise 2 children, try to make them functional adults in a world that is going more insane by the day. There's only so much time in the day, and there's only one of me, and I don't have any help. I don't have any editors. I don't have any moderators. Like, it's literally just me and you, the audience, but that's it. I do the editing. I do the uploading. I do the writing of descriptions, and I'm not complaining. I'm just saying there's a limited amount of time to do all the things. So doing what I need to do to keep things up and running, that involves that. I don't actually, because I kept saying that if it doesn't work, I'll just go and get a job and I'll just go do something else, which is still true. But I've kind of realized I don't want that to be the outcome. I don't want to ever have to leave again. I left with very real reasons last time. I don't want to do that again. I want to stay this time. Watching an ad is the least I can do to support one of the most informative channels on YouTube. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the time. It's not just the time watching the ad. People spend a lot of time. On the back end, I get to see collectively how much time you spend watching my videos. And I've said it before, and I'll just say it again briefly. It weighs on me. So it's like I put out a video, and in a couple days, people have collectively spent 3 years watching it. It's like, man, I just took 3 years of people's time away, and they chose to spend it with me. I hope I'm not wasting it. And I hope I'm giving them something in return, you know, for that time. And obviously I am, or you wouldn't be here. I do have an email for e-transfers, and that's all I've got, too. People have been at me to do all, like, buy me a coffee, different things and services. All I've got is PayPal and e-transfers right now. Crypto. Maybe I should look at that. I always tend to put off the back-end work and just focus on research and doing interviews and stuff. Like, I just, put off the back-end work. Don't ever think that everyone on here has been booked and logged by the RCMP and CSIS. Well, what a waste of time. I'm bondable. I don't have a criminal record. I've never been criminally charged. We're just discussing things. I think they have better things to do. Even if that's what they're doing, I think they have better things to do. At the time of some of our favorite northern neighbors' ability to actually post-create content will only occur if they are in the States. Nothing about Canada Stan is set up to ever side with. Just going through some comments here. Scotty says, thanks, Frank. Gotta fly. All right. It's cool that you can fly. Frank, do you remember my wife and we went to the Oshawa, Ontario. You also interviewed us at a Ford rally? Yes, I do. I do remember you. Very much so. Time well spent, says Dwayne. We're in Commie Canada. You deserve to be paid. And in return, well, and that's it too. It's like, you know, over and above a certain amount of money, I don't really have any needs. So I'd be generating write-offs. Because if you're looking at this as a business, the last thing you want to do is, so we talk about how YouTube takes 30%. And how PayPal and e-transfers are a better deal for you and a better deal for me. But if I got to the point where I'm making enough to live, anything over and above that expense, Like, I'm not looking to buy new cars. I'm not looking to take flashy trips to Disneyland. Like, I'm done with all that stuff. Like I've told you before, I own my house, but owning your house is like, that's just the first step in a long process. I may own my house, but I don't have cash, so I'm going to have to make income. But I don't want that money just going back to the government. So I'd be looking for write-offs. So let's say someday I have 150 or 200,000 a year budget. Well, only a fraction of that is going to be going to paying my living expenses. The rest, digital ads, billboards, projects, interviews, research. Like, my mind can run wild with what I can do, because that's kind of what it's all about. It's about what I can do. It's about what I can create. It's about what I can generate. And you need a budget for that sort of stuff. But like, I'm not thinking about what I need to buy. I'm thinking about what I'd like to do, right? So, yeah, that's just, I agree, abs or nothing. Did you get the cash for the live stream? I forgot all about it, actually. Clyde's he's a man of integrity, so I'm sure he's going to bug me about that again. He put me in an awkward spot, the turkey. And like, not only did he do a call out after saying that he would split the proceeds, he put up that poll about monetization. He really had me on the spot. He was turning my cheeks red. Not too many people do that, the turkey. Spectrum of reality. Oh, yeah, Spectrum of reality. We went back and forth last night. Hope you don't mind, man. I have been nuked off Facebook at least 100 times. They recently tried to force me to do a facial scan to make a new account because they track your device ID and IP address. Yeah, man, like, if you need anonymity online, you're living in the wrong time, which is why I just put it out there now. I gave Twitter my ID. Privacy is a space that you create. It's not something that you have anymore. It's a space that you create. So you can have privacy in limited ways, but if you want to be really effective and you want to be an advocate, you kind of just got to put it out there. And as far as Facebook, this sucks. I got a page over there. It's like got 12 or 14,000 followers. But because I registered it with an email that I subsequently deleted, some dude in Poland initiated a password reset request and registered the email again, and he stole the thing, and I can't get it back. He can't use it because I complained enough that it's locked, but it's permanently in purgatory. And I keep thinking about how I need to get back on Facebook because, you know, things have gotten better over there, at least somewhat. But just the idea of having to rebuild it, like, and that's kind of concerning too, because if I ever got nuked off YouTube, the task of rebuilding a channel with this kind of subscriber base, like, I mean, we're already in the top 0.3% of YouTube channels. Do you guys know that? Like, you've helped push it that high. Now, admittedly, there's a lot higher to go, but it's important to remember what we've already got and what we've already achieved, right? I never thought about it that way. Maybe a good reason to get on Facebook is to actually just discipline myself towards the rebuilding process. But I also don't know what value it is over there. I mean, how many people who are going to be on Facebook aren't already on YouTube or X? You know? Like, how much overlap is there? Actually, comment right now. How many of you are on YouTube and don't have X? Versus how many of you have X and YouTube and use both? Let me know. Because I'm curious about that. How much overlap there is versus how much... Because I upload videos to X and they don't do anything over there. X sucks for videos. It's all, you know, it's all put in your... Unless you're doing a live stream on X, and maybe I should be doing that too. Like, maybe I should be multi-streaming. I keep thinking about buying this StreamYard license. It's going to be like $1,000 or $1,100 a year. I guess I could buy a cheaper one. But I want to be able, if I buy it, I want to be able to multi-stream, and it would also be really good for interviews. That's another thing. Chime in. Would you like to see more interviews with other people? Because it might be worth the expense. But if I was streaming to X, it might actually work a little bit better. But uploading video over there it's useless. I keep doing it, but it's useless. It's not a good video sharing platform. Get a wallet of Satoshi and publicize the QR code. You can get tips and fractions of Bitcoin. That's good advice. Are you on Rumble? No, I'm not on Rumble yet, Madeline. It's something I really should look at. Could see you were uncomfortable last night over splitting the chats. Well, I didn't go into it expecting that to happen, and I appreciate it. It's very kind. And in fact, after the stream, he's just like, you know what, man, I don't even want to split it. I'm just gonna give you the lion's share of it. And I don't know, kind of put me on the spot. Hi, Lady Allen. Doesn't let me tag anyone. YouTube hates me. Yeah, I don't even know what's with tags in chats. Like, you should be able to tag people when they address you directly without typing their full handle. There should be an option just to reply. And I'm sure there's a reason they don't have it. Probably has something to do with spam and making it too easy to spam, but that would be best. I have X and YouTube both. I'm not on Facebook or X. Okay, so Dwayne is a YouTube exclusivist. Both, no X, YouTube only, both. Banned off X. Have you been banned since pre-Elon? Because, it might be time to go back. It's very different over there now. You can speak your mind. I know some people say they have problems, but by and large, it's the freest platform I think I've ever experienced. I only have YouTube. I have X, but don't use it. YouTube only, X and YouTube. What, less than 1% of my Facebook friends use X. Now, I can see that because Facebook and X are very different. Like, Facebook is actually still pretty cool. Like, I have a Facebook account, but I use it for Marketplace. But Marketplace is cool. Like, it's, unless you guys have a tip, it's one of the best ways to find cheap things. I mean, my kids have a plethora of toys, and it's thanks to yard sales and watching Marketplace. Like, we've built out a collection and curriculums and books. They have so many books, and we've acquired it all for pennies, like literal pennies. So Marketplace is pretty awesome. But yeah, I could see that. I could see that there wouldn't be a lot of overlap between the two. YouTube here, no X. Rumble is controlled by Peter Thiel. Yeah, I mean, they're all controlled by somebody, Spectrum. But, if you want to be on social media, you have to use the platforms. Like, this is where the people are, right? So regardless of who controls them, you have to play the game somewhat. It's all about putting your name in the algorithm on all platforms. Yep. So there's actually a lot of people who don't use X. There's a lot of YouTube exclusivists here. Interesting. So maybe there's not as much overlap as I thought there was. You and Marty up north would be cool. Good. Yeah, we follow each other on X. We've talked a couple times, but we've never been on video together. But that's like, my focus has never been interviews. Either, like, I go on channels when people invite me, and since I think I have to do more of that stuff. I think I got to actively try and get people on, or try and go on other people's channels. Like, I was supposed to do Viva Frey. We had it set up, and he either forgot or he ghosted or something. I don't know what happened, but yeah, we were chatting and we were going to do it, and then it didn't happen. And I haven't heard from him since. And often, like, I don't chase people. Like, if they fall off, I let them fall off. Like, I do not clout chase. Like, I mean, ask Clyde. I mean, that man, he's been trying to help me out for months, and I didn't make it easy for him. I do have all the platforms, but rarely go on to X. Facebook has too much spam and misinformation. Lady Allen, yeah, man. Like, Facebook is... That's another reason why I haven't tried to rebuild there, because there's so much AI nonsense, and none of it's labeled. Like, there's so much nonsense on Facebook. And that's if you're not getting spammed with hardcore porn. Like, I mean, I've had, like... When I first got back on Facebook to use Marketplace, I'm scrolling through my feed, and boom, hardcore porn right up in the feed. And so I got rid of it, And just as I got rid of it, my son comes walking through the door, and I'm like, you could be sitting there scrolling through that on the TV. And I mean, I don't want to have to explain that to my kid, right? I want them to be young. I want them to be innocent. I want them to have a good time being kids. All those adult hang-ups, they can do that stuff later. For now, they should just be kids. So yeah, Facebook has some other problems too. OBS Streamlabs is free if you want to do multi-stream. So Streamlabs. I'll check it out. OBS Streamlabs. Let me just... I'll look at that later. Because I have XSplit. I bought that when I was streaming before. So that's what we're streaming on right now is XSplit. I bought a lifetime license for that, and it's awesome. Like, I mean, I can do all the things with this, but I can't bring people into it. And StreamYard makes it really easy, and I need an easy way to do panels and stuff and bring in interviewers. And I mean, I really like what Clyde does. Just being able to have a chat with somebody and then throw something up on screen at the same time is really useful. And I think that has monetary value in terms of being worth spending money on. You can reply to super chats only. Yeah, I don't want to do that. Alberta Nan, I don't want to do that. That's why we're here, chatting this way. And I'm trying to, I don't see every comment because it scrolls by, but I just, I kind of like doing it this way where everybody has equal access. I get called a communist for that because I actually want to talk to my audience even if they're broke. Not on X, yes on YouTube, slowly withdrawing from Facebook. So there is a diversity of social media usage here. More than I would have anticipated. Frank Vaughan, how much garlic did you grow? Variety and price per pound you were selling? I've got 3,000 in the ground, slowly expanding. I grew 45,000 heads at peak, and I didn't sell all that. I turned it into garlic powder. I turned it into dips, but mainly I sold it just in bundles, dried and cured and ready for storage. So you would have garlic for a year, anywhere from $10 to $12 a pound. Some of the smaller growing varieties were $15 a pound, but that's pre-inflation. I think the last year I was actually selling garlic at scale was 2018. And in 2019, I ran in the election, and when I ran in the election, the whole farm fell by the wayside. I came out of that election so broke. I think I was the only one that lost money on that. But anyway, yeah, anywhere from 10 to 15 a pound. I couldn't tell you what it's worth now. Darn chat just skipped. I disagree with you, Frank, on just submitting to the expectation of showing ID to make a social media account. This is implicit acceptance of centralized government-affiliated digital ID. I think that's a bit of a stretch because submitting your card ID, the reason that I do it is because when I get an impersonator that's trying to scam my audience, I have the ability to defend. I have a platform. I have some authority to demand a takedown, and I do, and it's worked. So it's about protecting you. I show my ID to the police whenever they ask for it. I show my ID when I renew my insurance. I show my ID whenever I want to set up a bank account. There's a plethora of things that I show my ID for. I don't view showing my ID to social media for an express purpose. I get something back for showing my ID and for verification. I get protection. I don't see that as the same thing as supporting a government-controlled digital ID. Now, the interesting thing is that Mark Carney is an advocate for digital ID, but he's not an advocate for government-issued digital ID. He wants the central bank to be in control of identification issuance, which I think is even more disturbing. And I'm not just saying that everybody should just submit it. I'm saying that in my position, building an audience and doing what we're doing, being willing to share my ID with social media companies, I get something in return for it. So I'm willing to do it. You don't have to do it, and nobody has to do it to participate on social media. Like, you can still remain anonymous. Don't have Facebook. I live mostly in the real world. Good for you, Jack B. I love Viva. Try again. He gets busy doing interviews. Yeah, I don't want to bug him. Like, I don't clout chase, you know. I'm sure our paths will cross again, and I'll just wait. If anything, he's a speaker at this upcoming conference, and if I'm there and I'm doing hosting work, then I'm sure I'll talk to him there. I'll just be patient. And not just in regards to privacy, but security. None of these software firms have inspired confidence in being able to securely store sensitive information. Yep. I agree with that. You take your risks, but I mean, even the CRA got hacked, right? So what is secure? Like, what is secure? The concept of mods goes against free speech. Yeah, but people are stupid sometimes. You know, people say some really stupid things, or they'll come into your chat and spam it up. Like, sometimes you gotta lay the law down. Some people are just bad actors, you know. Podcasts can be great with the right people discussing topics. True that. Totally right. It's a sex site now. It doesn't matter how much you want to block it all, and the advertising just keeps coming. Yeah, that's Facebook. I'm not a big fan. I love Marketplace, but that's about, I don't know. We'll see what happens. The framework of digital ID has been in place in Canada for a number of years, and they are rolling it out, real ID, in the U.S. as we speak. Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing that people should keep in mind about the United States is not everything is hunky-dory and perfect there. There's still a lot of bad things happening and in process. Frank, would you like the Louis Rossman article link about all the steps needed for self-hosted, self-sufficient IT? Would cover pretty much all you need and reduce dependence on external providers. You know what? Morality 124. I did that once. I had my own exclusive server, and I was hosting videos directly on my website, and everybody was coming there to watch the videos, and it was awesome. It worked, and I had a chat set up with upvoting and everything else, which was all independent. I wanted to put together a news site, so I was able to host video and have thousands of people coming to the website and watching that video and streaming it at the same time without it breaking the website like I actually had it. But the problem was the first year, and this is in, what the hell year was that? I don't recall. I'm going to say it must have been, I don't know, 2017, 2018, 2019, somewhere in there, prior to COVID. It was definitely prior to COVID. But it was at a discount, a 50% discount. The first year was $10,000. And as we grew, that cost was just going to increase exponentially. And when that contract came up for renewal, it was going to go up somewhere. It was like $15,000. And then I can only imagine what it would cost now. So I did it. I paid for it with a credit card. And I set it all up. And I think it was because I had to duck because of people showing up at the house. Like, I'd have to really think about that, to think about the timeline. And I don't want to commit to a timeline because then people will say I'm lying. But I had it set up. And then I went back to the hosting service, I think 4 months in, and I said, look, things have changed. I got to go. Can you give me some of that money back? And they did. They actually refunded me the unused portion of the money. I was very lucky because I thought I was just going to lose whatever it was, $7,000 in unused service. So I do know how to do it. I could do it again. You can go ahead and link me the article. I'm happy to read it. So send it to my email, which is go to the donate link and you'll find my email, and you can send me email via that email and I'll get it. So I'm interested in reading it, but I do know how to do it if I had to do it again. It's prohibitively expensive And I'm sitting here being cheap about getting a StreamYard license, so I'm, if you're looking at spending $25,000 to get properly set up with infrastructure to do all this stuff, I'm definitely hesitant to do that right now. Rob Demand says, love garlic. I'm trying for the first time to grow some heirloom garlic myself. They are doing well so far. Stay tuned. You'll do fine, man. Garlic is very forgiving. Frank, have you thought about using Telegram? I've been on Telegram before. I'm not using it currently. What advantage would accrue to me in terms of building a following in using Telegram? And I'm asking that not sarcastically or anything. I just don't know. I don't see having a Telegram channel. I don't see how having a Telegram channel and putting content on it is going to, how are people going to find it? You still need X and you still need YouTube to push people to Telegram, right? Like there's no, does Telegram serve ads to people? Does Telegram have a feed that you can look through random stuff? Like, yeah, I'm not sure what advantage I'd get out of that. Social media companies verify ID through a few select firms and in turn are approved and partnered with governments. I think it's a small slope to government or government through central bank digital ID. Yeah, I think there's going to be a push for it, inevitably. Facebook is an intel harvesting website. They all are, brother. They all are. Your data is their primary asset. Frank, can you tell me why a teacher's pensions plan would be investing in assets? I found it on the WEF website because the teacher's pension is one of the largest pensions in the world. They're very powerful. They're invested in everybody. I believe they own a good chunk of the Edmonton Oilers. Big money looking for yield, I think, is the short answer. And a lot of the last 5 to 10 years has been driven by DEI and strategic development goals and all the woke nonsense. And it's not that it was good business, but there was vast sums of public money that you could tap into by following along with those things. So I think that goes a long way to explaining why everybody was there, but I don't think it's a money-making thing now. Like I think that's why everybody's getting away from it. They know it doesn't make money, the public money's drying up. So it's, time to find the next scam. I'll ask Viva's people to call your people, Frank. Sure. I mean, I could message Viva, but I don't want to. I don't want to go there with my hat in my hand. Like, if he wants to have me on his channel and have a conversation, he can do that. Claudia says, Frank, your channel has grown a lot. I started watching at 22K, which was only a month or so ago. Yeah, we have grown a lot. We're in a bit of a pause right now, which is fine. We're still going up, though. I think on the slowest days, we still gain 20 or 30 subscribers a day. So, I mean, that's good. Followers on X have really leveled off, but that's fine, too. I mean, I'm not really in it to rack things up quick. I'm all about quality over quantity, and I've got a good audience. Like, you people are awesome to chat with. So it's good. It's growing. It's heading in the right direction. And this is before we do anything, before we monetize, before we advertise, before we do anything. I haven't even done any digital ads. I used to do that in the past. I haven't done any. It's still growing. So good for you. Good for us. Frank, thoughts on Canada now signed into the WHO pandemic treaty? It sucks. We should be getting out of it. We should be running away from the UN, but we've got the wrong guy in office and the wrong government to be even thinking about that. We're going to be eating it for a while, my friend. I reckon we should report businesses that only hire their racial group. That's been going on for a long time in this country, and there's only one racial grouping that gets penalized for it. Everybody else gets away with it. minorities hire their own. It's just the way it's been for a long time, since before even Trudeau came along. All praise Brookfield. We appreciate you, Frank. Regards to your wife and kiddos. Yeah, because let's not forget them. If it wasn't for her, I mean, she is so supportive of me trying to do this. And her sole focus is those kids. She's a very, she used to work just as hard as I did on that farm. The farm reports, if you guys remember them, are testimony to that. And I know that she misses that sometimes, because she's a very hardworking woman and she likes to work with her hands just as much as I do. But she understands that there's nothing more important in the world than those two children, and doing everything we can to give them a good childhood, like a comfortable childhood, a secure childhood, free of some of the madness, and as they get older, introducing them to some of the evils of the world so that they're a bit more well-adjusted to it. She's university educated, and she's responsible for their education, and she works hard at that. And in spite of the financial uncertainty of what I'm doing here, or even the financial uncertainty of the farm back in the day, she supported those endeavors, and she has been at me to do this for over a decade. That she's always felt that this is where I need to be, and money's never been a problem. Like it's never been a concern for her. If it was, she would have never got with me in the first place, because she was broke and I was broker. I was heavily in debt when we met. So she got together with me out of love. For the boys out there, there are still women who aren't just looking for your money. They want to actually get together with your heart. You just got to find one. I found one, and I'm blessed for that. But, I mean, she's so supportive. She wants to see me do this, and she wants to see me succeed doing this. So shout out to her for sure. The WHO treaty news was a misdirection. They didn't agree on anything other than to continue negotiations. I'll share a Substack link covering this. There's still time. Okay. Been following you since before COVID. You were way ahead of the curve on COVID, as with many other issues. The info you have provided over the years has been great. Thank you, Candor. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who are critical of the way that I did COVID, and I can understand it. But, like, we're talking December 2019, January, February, March. By about May, I'd moved on to doing the farm stuff. I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm just a pleb with a webcam and an internet connection, you know. But you could see when they're locking down hundreds of millions of people in China that something was coming. And when your government's telling you, don't worry about it, it's not a problem, it's just a flu. Masks are dangerous. You know, don't pay attention. We're not shutting down flights. And then all of a sudden they flip their script and they bring in the most draconian powers they've ever taken. And you could see that coming, you know. You could see that one day, and I use the term over and over again, they're going to flip their script, and all of a sudden they're going to take it all away, and they're going to break things when they do it. And, you know, like, I yelled really loud about that because I wanted people to wake up. When I started talking about that, nobody knew what the hell I was talking about. Nobody was talking about it. There was like me, John Campbell, and Chris Martinson over at Peak Prosperity. And I remember talking to Martinson's partner at one point. We had emails back and forth, and it's like, how can people not see what's coming? The government's going to go nuts on this, and everybody's sleepwalking into it. Nobody's paying attention. I did interviews with different influencers, and nobody knew what the hell I was talking about, you know? And all I could say for sure was it was going to be a big deal. Whenever it became a big deal, it was going to be one of the biggest deals, and I couldn't even have fathomed how stupid things would get. And predominantly, I wanted people prepared for whatever it was, and to be calm, which is why I did the farm reports. And I talked about resilience and just being calm in the eye of the storm when everybody around you is losing your mind, just being calm and prepared. And that's the best you can do. And how, you know, your legal rights on your own private property and in your own domicile, and like what would happen if you did a rapid test and you got a positive result, and the legal ramifications of a positive result versus just avoiding a test altogether and not incurring those legal ramifications. Like those were all important things, at least I thought. So yeah, I'm glad you were around and you watched. You got a great woman there, Frank. I do. She's a saint. She really is. Please turn up the volume. I am on 100% and you're still quiet. Okay, we'll look at that. Wow, you had videos before COVID? Yeah, I mean, I started making videos in 2016. Maybe even, actually, yeah, I do think a little bit before that, before Donald Trump came along, for sure. If you look up online, Attawapiskat, when that big fat Indian chief went on hunger strike, and I was just like, yeah, BS. That woman ain't fasting. She's not drinking fish broth. I think that was predated Trump, but I think I started making videos in 2015, 2016, but that wasn't my focus. Like I was on social media, but I was way more anonymous back then. And I had a fairly large social media following, but it wasn't in my name. And it was largely focused on American content. But even before that, in 2012, I got involved in the climate change debate very heavy. That's where I started. So I've been around off and on for a while. Frank steered me and my family through hard times. Yeah, I mean, I have so many messages of people who understood what I was trying to do back then. And I'm thankful for it. Like hundreds of you. And even last night after Clyde's stream, I went on the Discord and there was a woman there who said that because of the farm videos, she completely changed her life around. It inspired her to get to work building her own thing. I've heard that at least hundreds of times, and maybe into the thousands of times I've heard how that work changed people's lives for the better. That's really fulfilling stuff. Really fulfilling stuff. It's not about getting the views and increasing my social media rank. It's about like positive stuff and positive impacts. And I love reading that stuff. Senior citizen, both of us never got vaccinated. That was the other thing. There's a clip that someone associated with the PPC has put together. It's a clip out of one of those COVID videos. And it talks about how I was having a virologist and a vaccine maker on the channel who was speaking anonymously, and I was having them on the channel, and then it cuts off. I had them on the channel, and their advice was, any product that comes to the market that skips regulatory hurdles, you should avoid. They're trying to frame it like I was pro-vax, that I was on board with it and told people to take it. I never said that. And any of you that were watching at that time, you know that. Don't go near it with a 10-foot pole. That was my message. So they're going to skip all the safety stuff. And that was I was saying that a year before they even brought it to market, that if they came out in the next year or two, don't touch it. Like that was one of my primary messages, and people who were there, you know that. It's tough to counter all the lies because the lie is so easy. People can do it all the time, and when you tell the truth, you have to prove it, and it takes way too much time. It takes it away from the good stuff that you should be doing. Farmer said it was a successful deployment, and next time they need to go bigger. Isn't that scary? And still hard to get ivermectin. Yeah, it's easier to get fentanyl and meth than it is to get ivermectin. It's crazy. I kept myself and my son jab free. Good for you, Mitchell. It was hard. I know. I got friends and people I still respect who got at least one dose and they regret it. I've never met somebody who didn't get it and regretted not getting it. But I've met a lot of people who got it and regret getting it. And I don't pretend to know my knowledge. I don't pretend to know what was in it and what happened and whatever else. It's just started watching you. You really were upset with Maxime Bernier with the U. I just don't like people who say things and don't do them. I don't like people who mislead. He promised something with the People's Party that he didn't deliver. And that's really what it comes down to. And I helped him create it. So I bear some responsibility for that. That said, I don't really want to talk about the PPC right now. I've done enough of that. It's a waste of time at the moment. Yeah, I lost friends to the jab, second dose and done. Yeah, I knew people who, yeah. Big casualty event and we'll never have a count. Anyway, folks, that's a couple hours. I hope you enjoyed. It was a good chat. I learned some things. And we're going to do it again more often. We're going to do more chats more often. Because this is good. And I really value all of you just being here and spending your time. That's the thing I value most, is the amount of time you spend. You guys, and I'm not just saying this, like, you guys make it happen. I might be on this end of the camera, but I wouldn't be anything if you people didn't get value out of it. So I appreciate you. That's really what this stream was all about.